What is
Thanks.
your initial reaction to the U.S.-Mexican deal that the president just announced?
Well, I think it's a step toward doing no harm. I think, as Mike McKee pointed out, it doesn't create a lot of new business opportunities, and but to have NAFTA fail in any deep way would be a very damaging event for all three economies. I think it's important to remember that we had a modernized NAFTA on the table when the president took office, and that was called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It must have been relatively simple, for example, to do the digital goods chapters and things like that. The hard parts would have been the content, the auto deal, and it remains to be seen what's been done with dispute settlement issues. So I think the devil is going to be in the details here. This could have been a lot of stagecraft and very little progress, or there could be some real progress, and that's going to depend on what comes out in this agreement.
So help us understand one specific issue, which apparently, under the current NAFTA, we have 62.5% of a car coming in from Mexico has to be made in North America. Now that's going to be 75%, so that's an increase, 12.5%. Does that mean there are going to be more jobs in the United States making auto parts?
Well, there's another change in there that will make this a little more complicated to figure out, which is they're changing the way they calculate the content. And so the increase is not quite as much as might appear on the surface. But in broad strokes, yes, this requires more of the auto to be made in the United States or Canada to be coming in from Mexico. And that's what the domestic content is intended, or the North American content is intended to produce. I'll just point out, as a little bit ironic to say that you're using tariffs as a way to get better deals that don't have tariff and non-tariff barriers. These content rules are trade barriers. There's no question about it. And it's the same kind of content rules that upset the U.S. about how China does business. So there's a little bit of talking out of both sides of the mouth on that substance.
So the president said the next step really is to shift toward Canada to see if the deal can be done with Canada.
Right.
And he specifically said that could be a three-way deal, including Mexico, or it could be a bilateral deal. Does it matter whether it's a three-way deal the way NAFTA was, or whether there's two bilaterals?
Certainly for the process, it matters a lot. I think, again, as Mike McKee pointed out, the president has authority to negotiate a new three-way deal under his NAFTA authorities. He doesn't have the authority to do a bilateral deal with Mexico or a bilateral deal with Canada. And I think it was quite revealing that the very first point that the Mexican president made when he got on the phone was to point out that it was time to get Canada on this deal. Mexico is clearly invested in a new NAFTA, not in a bilateral with the United States, and that's the next step.